looking at both men and women and how they are operating in the world, and what it is that they need to differently support them, and that women may have some different needs or priorities or whatever that conflict with those of men, and maybe vice versa as well. So gender neutral policies, they're not aimed at specifically either men or women, but they're assumed to affect both equally. Okay. So they actually target and they use intervention to basically meet whatever needs are necessary for people. Yeah. Okay. So there's the example of, reducing the number of young people who start smoking as a policy to start that, but we know that young men and young women start smoking differently, right? They come into that idea of smoking differently in social situations or for different reasons they do it. So they've learned that these kind of policies aren't effective in a neutral way. Right. So gender neutral bathrooms, that's kind of an idea of a neutral policy. Right, so that bathrooms can be for everyone, not gender specific. What about in your countries or your area? What do you have? Men's, women's bathroom?
Separate.
Separate?
Yeah.
So when I first came here, like 20 years ago, there were often just one bathroom, and you would walk by a urinal to get to a stall, and sometimes there would be a guy standing there. It was really hard for me because in Canada we just didn't have that, right? Men's bathrooms, women's bathrooms.
Yes.
And so, but I think they've actually, I don't see that very often anymore. So I think they kind of phase that out. But, I mean, whatever. Yeah. And unemployment insurance is another policy, and I've read some studies that shows, that women often, those employment insurance policies, I don't know about where you're from, but in Canada, you have to maintain permanent work for a certain number of months, and you have to maintain a certain level of income. You can't go below that, which disadvantages, for example, women who often are in part-time, lower paid jobs, often have to leave because of certain reasons and that. So, seemingly neutral policy affects different people differently. And then we, of course, have been talking about gender-specific policies. Right. And here, this is about redistributive policies, okay? And that's trying to share different resources, or, for example, quotas systems, or other types of affirmative action policies, for example. Can you see that? The color's a little bit odd. But anyway, this is Kabir's framework, right? So she starts with gender blind policies, right? Policies that just ignore everything, any kind of sexual differentiation, rethinking assumptions and practices, and getting into gender sensitive practices, whether they're neutral or gender specific or redistributive policies. So these three she classifies as sensitive, gender sensitive practices and policies. Right? So it's a nice, easy way to kind of understand these different policies. So, just as an example, before we wrap up, but Japan's LDP party came up with a home education assistance policy initiative not too long ago. And so it was a home education, it was a bill that said basically it was about trying to implement family values and support families. Okay? So it sounded like a very good bill. So it's aimed at having, so this is a quote from the English translation of the policy, having parents and other guardians make their children form habits that are necessary for their living, as well as to try to get the children to acquire an independent mind and achieve balanced development of their body and mind. It sounds good, but it's not quite clear what they're talking about. So it sounds like a bill aimed at providing financial assistance to poor families. So that's what it was about, right? In the education of their children. So it was also aimed at homeschooling as well. So if people needed to homeschool, they would get some sort of support. But, you know, or here it says, you know, for kids who couldn't go to school because there was bullying. And that's a huge problem here. And so in those cases, you know, the government was trying to help. But if we really look at the bill, we really start to look at it, it says that assisting home education has become an important issue because of the changes surrounding families. The disintegration or the so-called disintegration of the family is responsible for many things in society. And I think that's probably in many, many countries. The birth rate going down, right? Women going into the workplace, actually taking away jobs from men. You know, those kinds of, creating an imbalance in family dynamics. You know, all of these things are kind of blamed on this idea of what is a family. Right, so people don't spend time together. Well, that's probably due to cell phones. Yeah, that's another thing. So this was pushed by these lawmakers, and in the States too, they talk about this ideal of traditional family values, right?